The age of your consumer. Can you talk a little about age?
Sure.
Because you look at some product companies like a General Mills.
Yeah.
They cater doing the cereals for the little kids,
Sure.
all the way up to
Exactly.
the adults.
That's a great question. Actually, our target really is this roughly around the 7-year-old to the 30-year-old. We really are geared towards not only the fastest segment of the population, but within that population is a very youthful population. So we're aggressively going after from the 7-year-olds up to 30-year-old because that is going to be the largest segment of that population.
We were talking before the show. We were talking about the milk market and about how now schools are in the process of removing sodas from the schools and having to replace it with milk and juices. And it seems like that could potentially be a pretty big market for you.
I mean, going back, exactly. I mean, that's the reasons why we're also in conjunction with working not just to develop other flavors, but we're also developing different packaging arrangements. I mean, today we package in 12-ounce cans and in aluminum bottles, and obviously we'll extend that into different sizes of those. But we're also working to put out our products in what we call Tetra Pak or UHT packaging. And basically, they're similar to the little Tetra Pak boxes with the straws where you just punch in for the school kids. That's exactly correct. I mean, as we expand our distribution channels in every physical location that we're in, we're looking to do what's called home consumption packaging, which is like the half-gallon milk container, like similar to the soy milks, and going after the school market, like you mentioned, because in some school districts, in particular the markets that I mentioned to you, literally the Hispanic sometimes make up more, a majority of the population, especially like in Southern California.
Well, let's talk about what you're trying to move into in terms of the future of growing this business. You're rolling up the small companies. That's what you're intending to do.
Yes.
What kind of cooperation do you get from the normal distributors?
Sure.
Are they an impediment, or are you finding them greeting you with open arms?
I learned early on in this business that our distribution partners, as we refer to them, are a great asset, especially because they have market penetration. They already have the established accounts and so forth. But for the most part, still, because some of the categories that we go into, we're sort of creating a category, in particular with our brand, our flagship brand. We kind of view them as sort of like, as you would sort of view a FedEx, UPS, or DHL. They're great for servicing the accounts. But at the end of the day, the selling, the branding, the merchandising has to be done by us. So it is some legwork involved in it, but the relationship that we have with the retailers and in essence also with the consumer, it's really what's going to create that's really the basis for the company, because at the end of the day, you may have a distributor relationship today, but it might change tomorrow. But you need to have your products on the store shelves and have your consumers have access to your products.
What type of margins does your business drive?
Yeah, right now we are pushing near the 30% gross margin, which is pretty standard for the food and beverage industry. We're not a high-tech company, so obviously we don't have large gross margins. The beauty of it is, though, of course, that once we gain traction, especially with certain particular SKUs or SKUs, as we refer to them, that it's sort of like it goes on its own momentum. The orders start to just keep coming in, they're regular, and then they start to increase on a quarterly basis. And then the consumer just basically dictates how much how much volume you can actually move through.
Obviously, we're hearing a lot about how the consumer's having a tough time now with the economy. And what's your experience that you've seen from being out in the field, the last 6 months, in terms of what's going on with the, your typical consumer?
Yeah, that has been an issue. Obviously, especially when you go into certain markets like in the Southeast, which was booming for a while, states like in Georgia, North Carolina, and of course a lot of that boom was real estate and construction related. So a lot of our market, if you will, our target audience, are people who work those type of jobs. What we have done is hold down the line on price. I mean, of course, it's been tempting, especially with products that have already gained that traction, have already been in the marketplace for 3 years, and the demand is well established. And it's very tempting to just increase the prices because you can. To some degree, we've been fortunate enough that because of the efficiencies of our production, our gross margins have been able to expand as opposed to get hurt by the higher raw material costs. And what we have done in that sense, instead of increasing the prices, we've held down the prices steady. And I think the consumer, which is really ultimately our ally, has appreciated that.
How big is a factor is energy in your costs?
Well, that affects everybody. Obviously, when you talk about transports and shipping, you get these notices from the shippers that there's going to be surcharges and stuff like that. We factor that in. Obviously, we calculate that and break that down per unit of our cost of goods. Now, one of the things, like I've mentioned before, from last year in 2007, especially in this year, translating into this year, we've been able to be more efficient in the way we ship our products, our raw materials, and where we get them from, so that our overall cost, if anything, has actually gone down slightly. So that's been able to help us in our gross margin.
Well, that's a refreshing thing to hear from somebody along the line in your industry, that
Yes.
they've actually been able to shave it, because the experience that most consumers are having is that literally everything is rising in the supermarket. I guess one of the things that I would wonder about this business is its scale.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how big the market's going. I mean, is this basically a market that you can build a company that'll do a $200 or $300 million, or maybe even $500 million in sales?
Sure. It basically, our model is based upon how many points of sales, and that basically is defined as any physical retail location that carries our products, whether it be a convenience store, a mom and pop store, which are referred to sometimes as bodegas, to all the way up to chain stores like Class A retailers.
Well, Fernando, I want to thank you. As usual, running out of time. Okay. We have tons of questions. I'd also like to thank our viewers for joining us tonight. We'll be discussing a novel way to treat cancer, a new innovation. For more information on this show and other shows, please go to wxcl.org with your questions and comments. I'm James DeGiorgia.
And I'm Jeff Garbaz for The Market Guys. Good night.
To receive a copy of your favorite Wealth and Wisdom episode, or if you have a question or comment about our program, please feel free to write us at Wealth and Wisdom, care of WXCL, P.O. Box 6607, West Palm Beach, Florida 33405. Or call us at 1-800-915-9935, extension 4477. We look forward to hearing from you soon.